against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Simply Bitcoin, the most watched daily live Bitcoin only show on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. Of course, we're all over the internet, but we cover breaking news, culture, and mimetic warfare, and we will be your guides through the separation of money and state. And we got one of those episodes today. On one side of today's episode, we will be talking about literally the separation of money and state because Germany's selling all of their Bitcoin. You love to see it. And on the backside, we got a glorious headline coming out of Forbes in regards to the conversation coming out after Trump has embraced Bitcoin. And this headline at Forbes is Trump sparks talks of Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. And they're doing an incredible job. We've had a few friends that write for Forbes, and honestly, we got to give kudos to the Forbes team. I think they are doing an incredible job at adding Bitcoin signal for the mainstream, or you want maybe say mainstream, but the legacy corporate press. They're continuously dropping some really good signal over there on their website, on their platform, and you just love to see it. And of course, guys, for us here in America, it is 4th of July. So this is one of those days where you remember why you are a Bitcoiner in the first place. This is about independence. This is about freedom. These are the days that you're reminded why we are so adamant, why we are so obsessed with freedom money in the first place. It's going to be a long journey, but it does feel like we are in this point right now, not only in America, but on a global scale where we're seeing, I don't want to use Nico's terms, but the fourth turning happening here. And maybe some of us out there, and I would argue that many Bitcoiners are becoming new founding fathers, not only in their own country, but global. And this is the beauty of Bitcoin. It is ushering in the ideas of freedom on a global scale, because why should a small group of people have the power to print money into infinity, into oblivion, why you have to work for it, why you got to sweat and, you know, cry and figure out how to survive when they can literally just print money out of thin air. This is why we do what we do as Bitcoiners, is because we want to have a better money, fix the money, fix the world. And I would argue if the founding fathers of America had Bitcoin, they would be obvious Bitcoin maximalists. And this is just one of those great days. And today's show is going to definitely touch on all of those topics of freedom, of the separation of money and state, of finding your own independence, of being sovereign in your own right. So we got a great show for you guys today in those terms. But also, before we get to the news segment, I've seen a lot of you guys in the chats talking about the idea of, oh man, there's been record inflows, there's the ETFs going on, like why is the Bitcoin price dumping? What's going on out here? So for the new people in the chat hanging out with us, we're going to cover some signal on why we think the Bitcoin price is dumping. I saw yesterday, right when I got off the show, that Nico did a really good presentation, or he was moderating a panel at the Bitcoin Rodeo in Calgary, Canada, and they literally hit on this topic. So Nico may not be here today. As you can tell, it's your boy Opti. I'm hosting today's show. Apparently his internet's not messed up. He called me this morning. I had to scramble to get some guests and co-hosts for today. But we got a good show for you nonetheless, and they dropped some pure signal yesterday on why the price is going down, and I got a little more receipts on the back end to further explain to you guys why the price is going down. But for you guys that hang out with us every single day, it doesn't matter. The only price that matters, the only number that matters here is the SAT under your control. So this is a good buying opportunity. If you like Bitcoin at 70K, you're going to love it at, I don't even know what the price is today. I haven't checked it. I'm going to check it live with you guys, but I think it's in the 50s. It might be in the 58s right now. There's a lot of selling happening. Anyways, I had to scramble this morning. So shouts out to our boy, Chris Alemo, making a back-to-back appearance on Simply Bitcoin, programming manager at Swan. And, you know, I'm lucky. I'm lucky that you guys got the day off. You know, we're exercising our American freedoms today on 4th of July. I had to literally pull Chris away from the pool or the barbecue or wherever you're going today. I told him to bring a Budweiser on the show so he feels a little more festive on today's show. But how you doing, Chris? Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. Happy 4th of July to everyone. Yeah, always excited to talk about Bitcoin, even on July 4th.
You should be even more excited on today's show. More excited. And then, of course, we have. Nico actually told me to say this, Alex. So we have Simply Bitcoin's favorite statist on today's show, Aleks Svetski. No, I'm trolling.
Welcome.
Alex, Bitcoin entrepreneur. He just dropped his latest book. We've been talking about it for a while. I'm super excited for this conversation. And the book title, The Bushido of Bitcoin. So we're going to go hard on that today in the culture. But Alex, how you been, man? It's been a couple of months. Good to have you on.
Thanks, brother. Been busy spinning down AI stuff, building up something new on Nostr, finishing up this book. It's been a crazy couple of months, man.
Let's go. All right. Well, before we go into the show today, maybe do a little teaser. What is the Bushido of Bitcoin? What is this project and what have you been working on?
All right. In short, it is a book that tries to answer the question or ask the question of what happens after Bitcoin wins. So the way I've sort of framed it is the world is moving, whether we like it or not, the world's going to move on to a new socioeconomic standard. We all know that new socioeconomic standard is going to be Bitcoin. So that's the tie back to Bitcoin. But the book's not about fucking Bitcoin. There's nothing in there about history of money or fucking how Bitcoin works and all that. I don't give a fuck. It's been done 1,000 times. Every other book is just like a derivative of Saifedean's Bitcoin Standard, right? So it's been done to death. What I was interested in is what happens when we get there. Do we become a new parasitic class? Do we become just a bunch of fucking degenerates? Or do we become men and women of virtue? And if it's the third one, it's not just going to fucking happen. You know, all these people going, oh, Bitcoin fixes this, Bitcoin fixes you. No, it doesn't happen that way. You need to actively inculcate a set of virtues. And what I looked at was, all right, if we're going to need to develop new virtues, what were the greatest civilizations on Earth? What were the cultures that preceded those civilizations? Because culture is upstream of civilization. And the thing that's specifically upstream of culture is virtue. And you can think of virtue as principles and behavior, right? How did those people behave? And what I found was the greatest, most powerful civilizations all had warrior cultures and warrior virtues upstream. Whether it was the Christian West, the Japanese, the samurai, the Romans, the ancient Greeks and Macedonians, all of you guys, the overlap was incredible. So what I did was I went back, and it's basically a book. It's a history book. It's history, it's philosophy, it's psychology. That's what this book is about. I went back and looked at what were the virtues that those cultures had embedded in them, and how can we take those, project forward, and build a new civilization. So you're not going to find anything in here from Mises or this and that. You're going to find stuff from Nietzsche, from Alexander the Great, from Christ, from Napoleon, from Julius Caesar, from Julius Evola, from Spengler, from all of these thinkers that a lot of Bitcoiners are not familiar with, unfortunately. And yeah, it's the kind of book that'll fucking fire you up about life.
Hell yeah, love it. Like I told Svetski a couple, I don't remember when you dropped the teaser, which we will play for you guys. You dropped your Bushido Bitcoin teaser on Twitter. It did, got an incredible reception. And I was telling you, I'm like, I don't think I've been this excited for some Bitcoin content in a while, because like you said, it's not necessarily about Bitcoin, but it is about Bitcoin, and it's about the framework of how we should be holding ourselves. And that's really what I've been thinking about constantly. It's like, okay, we know Bitcoin's going to be here, or at least us, savage Bitcoiners. We know Bitcoin's going to be around for a long time. Now, will I have, like you said, enough virtue, enough honor to usher in these sats for the long run? And so it's about becoming the person you want to be. And then I need this type of framework. Everyone knows I'm a philosopher by trade. So once we get a Bitcoin,
Opti's a degenerate at heart, though.
Don't dox me.
Yeah,
So
bro.
I'm super excited for this. All right, guys, let's get into today's show. You already know the deal. We got to pay the bills here. So shouts out to Bitcoin Well. Go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. Get yourself some real Bitcoin. They're on the mission to enable independence. It's the best way to buy Bitcoin in Canada. It's going to become the best way to buy Bitcoin in the US. It is self-custody by default, which literally means you need to have a Bitcoin wallet to even buy sats on the platform. They want to make sure that you are using and doing the best Bitcoin practices up front. They never hold your Bitcoin. This is the way, guys. Do not leave your Bitcoin on exchanges, because, hey, as history has shown us, the Bitcoin might not be there. So you want to make sure you're using Bitcoin only platforms, but also Bitcoin only platforms that make sure they do not wreck you if you leave your Bitcoin on an exchange. And Bitcoin Well doesn't ever hold the Bitcoin. So that's a plus here. Anyways, you already know the deal, guys. Pull out your Lightning wallets right now. If you already signed up to Bitcoin Well, make sure you participate in the Bitcoin Wishing Well, and you can get some free sats. So every time you buy, refer your friends onto the platform. You get some points and you get some spins. Go into your dashboard, go into Bitcoin Well rewards, go into My Rewards, hit the redeem button, and then you can redeem some sats. So you guys are lucky. If we get the 1,000,000 sats today, you guys get it because I don't have my phone handy. Okay, 500 sats. So first come, first serve. I'll leave this up for a moment. Scan it with your Lightning wallet and you get some free sats. So this is the way, boys and girls. On that note, let's get into today's show because we got a lot to talk about.
Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed.
Of course, guys, make sure you're not leaving your seed phrase on a piece of paper in your sock drawer. Get yourself a stamp seed, stamp it into titanium. This is the special limited edition Simply Bitcoin version that you can't buy. But hey, bug them enough and they might get you one of these. So, all right, guys, on today's, I'm jumping the gun. I need to pull up the numbers here. I'm already trying to talk with you guys about why the price is going low. Of course, we're over here on Clark Moody's dashboard. Wow. Okay. I literally haven't seen the price today, but I guess it's 58K forever. So the Bitcoin price currently is $57,860. The sats per dollar, aka how much Bitcoin you can buy for a single dollar, aka how much the dollar is worth in Bitcoin, is currently at 1,728 sats per dollar. The block height is currently at 850,694. The total percentage of Bitcoin that will ever be issued is at 93.9%. The realized monetary inflation, taking fiat currencies to school, it's literally the hardest money period on planet Earth right now, 1.55%. The market cap in dollar terms, at $1.14 trillion. Dang, I think we lost our footing above silver, but hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. The total public Lightning capacity, 4,953.25 BTC. The days since all-time high, 112 days since we last hit an all-time high. And yesterday I was talking about, the Bitcoin price being the volatility being dampened. Well, I was like, yeah, we're probably not going to see 30%, 50% again. Well, we're at negative 21.6% today. So, hey, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit yesterday, guys. But the median fee currently at 13 sats. Again, I do know we are not going to have a guest tomorrow, so I will talk to you guys about UTXO management. You guys have been asking about that in the chat as well. But that's not the topic we're going to talk about today. So Nico's been gone all week. He's been at Bitcoin Rodeo. He did a panel yesterday. Literally right when I popped off the show, I saw the Bitcoin Rodeo stream was going on, and I happened to catch this conversation of Nico. He was hosting the panel, and they asked a very good question at the very end. And I've seen you guys in the chat asking this question as well of like, oh man, we have record inflows. The ETF's been dropped. There's institutional demand, but why is the Bitcoin price dropping? So I thought maybe today is a good chance to not only bring Nico back on the show because he seems to be in vacation land. He's abandoned us here, guys. No, I'm just joking. His internet's not working today. We had Preston Pish, Seb Bunny answer that question on why is the Bitcoin price going down. And then I also saw a chart on Twitter this morning that added to that signal. And then, of course, I am going to touch on the fact that Germany is just dumping all of their Bitcoin, as BTC Believer in the chat was saying the other day. This is the real separation of money and state, is when the government start dumping their Bitcoin. So you just love to see it. Anyway, let's get into this video. It is at 1.25%, guys, because I wanted to make sure we got as much signal as possible in this bit. So if it's a little too fast for you guys, maybe you watch it on playback and you slow down the speed. But here's Nico at Bitcoin Rodeo. Let's listen to this.
I want to end it with this, because we've seen these record inflows. We've seen this tremendous demand. You've seen this marketing from Wall Street. They're getting involved. Some of the smartest people in the world are pitching this to some of their wealthiest clients. You know, like all this stuff is happening. And, you know, I think a lot of Bitcoiners potentially that are watching the price action are kind of scratching their heads and saying, you know, why is the price going sideways? Like, you know, I thought the ETFs are here. I thought Larry Fink was here to pump our bags. What's going on?
I think it goes back to the point I made a little earlier, which is there's something called the cash and carry trade, where when you've got Bitcoin and you've got the futures markets, you can basically trade Bitcoin at today's price. You can also trade Bitcoin at a future price. And the challenge we're facing is that institutions are buying up Bitcoin ETF at today's price, whatever it is, 62,000, and then they're able to sell the 2 month, 3 months price, future estimated price of Bitcoin, and capture that difference. And so at the moment, a lot of money is funneling into Bitcoin purely to try and capture this difference. So of course the ETF is going up, but then we're also seeing shorting on the futures, suppressing that price. So we've kind of got this paradoxical price action right now, and it can be confusing to those that maybe aren't digging deeper into this product.
Do you think that changes as time goes on, and like how long it takes for that to kind of flush through the system? I'm curious.
It's a challenging one because, again, it goes back to this whole question, why are they doing this? And it's because we have a system where interest rates have been suppressed for so long. We're nothing near the I would say, a free market cost of capital. And so because of this, people are trying to just obtain capital in any way they can to fund their liabilities. And at the moment, Bitcoin is one of those ways that is outperforming almost anything else out there. And as we discussed kind of at the outset, Bitcoin, when you're doing the cash and carry trade, back in March, I think the returns on the cash and carry trade annualized at like 28%. That is like well and above anything in TradFi. And so of course you're going to see TradFi flock into these assets. And so that's where, in the short term, I don't know if I see that changing.
Yeah. Well, what the basis trade does is it makes the price action explosive. So if you're in a market that has been oversold and you then go into this basis trade, it goes sideways because they're capturing 20 or 30% spreads, right? It's going to whittle, that spread is going to get whittled down, and what you're doing is you're just like pinning that thing against the wall, and then you get an explosion in either direction. Because I think you're coming out of a deeply bear market where you had aggressive selling, I suspect that this is going to lead to an explosive event here by the end of the year in the upwards direction. But you can also get the exact same dynamic that plays out. Let's say that the thing starts getting bid, you go in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, we're late 25, and speculators are taking over the market, they're kind of dominating the price action, and you get more basis trade because the volatility is like a magnet for quick money on Wall Street. So then you get another sideways action kind of at the top, and then the next explosion is not in the up direction, but it's in the down direction because the speculators are dominating the market, and it's been overbought. Long-term holders are out of money, and all the coins are gone. Or they're being heavily traded at that point. So you get these dynamics, and what I think to your question is I think that it's actually going to get more aggressive in the violence of the moves, and nothing screams trying to find its real market value than violence in the price action. And like when we look at a chart of Weimar back in the 1920s, there was a lot of volatility early on the left side of that chart. Then when you get to the right side of that chart, it's still just equally as violent, but in the nominal terms against the mark, I mean, it just looked like a vertical line straight up. Yeah. And so if you're looking at it from a percent change standpoint on a month-to-month basis, like you might see 70, 80% volatility, but when you zoom out with like the whole chart, things just going whoop. Yeah. So get ready. Like the derivatives are like taking gasoline and then getting a truck of gasoline and coming over and then dumping that on top of it as well, for volatility and violent price action.
All I heard was super bullish price actions, but adding to that, I did see this tweet this morning, just kind of adding to this idea of why is the Bitcoin price going down? Well, shouts out to Charles Edwards. I always mess up your Twitter, at Capriol IO on Twitter, and he goes, this is why we haven't moved yet. Sailor, Michael Dell, ETFs, it's all noise. When you look at the data, the four most important players in Bitcoin, we have net flows equivalent to $24 billion being dumped on the market in 2024. And he's got a chart here. You can see, miner reserves, it's in the negative. They're selling new Bitcoin mined. Of course, that's just Bitcoin that gets released daily. It's, of course, it's it's selling pressure. And then we got net flows of 374,000 Bitcoin. And then, of course, this bottom line is long-term holders. Hey, the OGs are getting some, they're locking in some gains here, and they're selling a little bit of Bitcoin. It is what it is. But on top of that, guys, this has been an ongoing story we've seen in the last, I would say, I think it's like 3 weeks. The German government is just dumping a huge amount of Bitcoin on the market. So you can see here, I'm over on arkhamintelligence.com. You can go over here, check it out yourself. And you can see on 6/19/2024, the German government had 50,000 Bitcoin. And in the last 3 weeks, they have dumped 10,000 Bitcoin on the market. So you just love to see it. As BTC Believer was saying in the chat, this is the real separation of money and state. But we got a few good takes on Twitter. First one from Samson Mao. Imagine selling the hardest form of money that has ever existed. Now imagine selling that hard money for fiat that you have ability to just print out of thin air. Finally, imagine selling on exchanges with market orders, driving the price lower so you get even less. The German government just absolutely gonna have fun staying poor. They're wrecking themselves right now, and you just love to see it. And last one before I pass it over to my guest, Tom Luongo here, responding to this exact news, and he goes, please keep sending BTC into private hands to prop up your failing bond markets. This is one of the best developments of 2024. So you absolutely love to see that the governments out there don't understand what the game is yet. They are giving you guys some cheap Bitcoin. So yes, if you're new to Bitcoin, maybe you're concerned, maybe you don't have the conviction that all of us OG Bitcoiners have. I wouldn't even consider myself an OG Bitcoiner, but I've been in the market long enough where the price movements don't affect me. If you like Bitcoin at 70K, you're going to love Bitcoin on sale today. And we got a 4th of July sale today. So continue to stack that freedom, continue to save in Bitcoin. This is the way, but a lot of factors playing into why the Bitcoin price has been down. But again, I still think we are going to see the halving cycles play out. As Preston Pitch was saying, by the end of the year, we'll probably see some violent movement in price upwards. So make sure you are stacking. Don't take your foot off the gas. This is not the time to not be buying Bitcoin because it seems, it's so boring. We're not at $100 million per Bitcoin yet. But hey, you know one thing. It's going up forever. It's trending up and to the right. So keep stacking. This is the way. All right, Chris. TLDR this with the right side of the bell curve. But what's your take on all this stuff?
I'm actually going to stay left side of the bell curve today. Basically, there's more people selling than there are buying. I understand there's a whole bunch of dynamics.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of dynamics. People are leveraging long, leveraging short, getting blown out. Like, I understand that. But as a whole, there's more people selling than buying. This is your opportunity to buy Bitcoin at a cheaper fiat price. I like Tom Luongo's tweet probably the most.
Chris, I think
Whoa,
your audio dropped, but you're back. I think you're
I'm
back.
Am I good? Sorry about that.
You said Tom Luongo's tweet.
Tom Luongo's tweet, the thing that I like it the most about it is, like, how dumb do you have to be to sell the hardest money that there ever is for fiat dollars? Like, these politicians and bureaucrats and parasites know they print money. That's literally their whole shtick, is like printing money for all these stupid social programs or all these different things. And they're selling something for something that they know that they can go to literally, like, Jerome Powell can literally go to a keyboard, smash his head on the keyboard, and print $1 trillion more. So, it's so dumb that they're getting rid of an asset that's a hard money, and selling it for fiat money. Makes absolutely no sense. So I definitely think, I know Svetski's going to talk about this, how stupid the bureaucrats are and, what we want to see in the future. But yeah, they're on the net. There's more people selling than buying Bitcoin. This is your opportunity to stack cheap sats. Obviously buy them, put them into cold storage, back up your seed words, and, go on with your life and make a better world.
Yeah, 100%. Go touch some grass and stack Bitcoin. It's super simple. Keep it simple, stupid. There's just more sellers than buyers. Don't freak out. It's very simple. All right, but Aleks, you've been in the game a little longer than me. So do you even care about price movements anymore? Like, what's your thoughts on all this stuff from the more OG perspective? Like, what would be your advice to the noobs out there worrying about the price?
Bro, I just phased out when you put that Preston Pitch article on. Video. I was just like, fuck are these people talking about? I just don't care. I really just don't care. I mean, Chris said it. There's just more people buying and selling. Fucking congratulations. Look at the history of Bitcoin. It's up, down, and around in circles. No one gives a fuck. Honestly, people who just dedicate their lives to thinking about this shit. Man, get a girlfriend, get a wife, get a life. It's better things to do. So I don't know. I just couldn't care less.
Love it.
And you know what? I think Samson's tweet like really nailed it. It was great. It's just imagine you can print money. Like you literally print it and then you sell your fucking assets for the same money that you could have printed for free. Like you got to be really fucking stupid for that. But I mean, welcome to government, right?
Welcome to government. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It reminds me of me and Wine, he helps us out on the back end with Simply Bitcoin. We always talk about this idea of like Bitcoin Zen. And once you get down to the rabbit hole, you end up like Svetski, where you're just like, I don't care about the price. Like, I know what Bitcoin's going to do. It goes up, it goes down. It doesn't matter. Like, it's still working how it is. Don't focus on the price. This is how you live a good life. Like, get your mental health going well. Go outside, touch some grass, build some relationships, stack in Bitcoin. This is all you have to do. You don't have to look at what the Federal Reserve interest rates are or what the Fed's going to do. Just stack Bitcoin, take it into cold storage. This is the way, guys. This is like the pure signal of today's show. All right, let's get into the news. But before we do that, go to our boys over at the plebpartynashville.com. We're going to be taking over Bitcoin Nashville July 25th. We're going to have a 12-hour party at a rustic automobile factory. It was built in 110 years ago, literally before it was built in 1910 before the Federal Reserve was created. So you already know it was built for the long term. But guys, go to plebpartynashville.com. Get yourself some tickets. It's going to be July 25th, the day before the conference. It's going to be partying with all your favorite Bitcoiners. Go there. The whole Simply Bitcoin team will be there. We'll hang out in person, get some drinks, have some fun. This is the way, guys. Make sure you are hanging out with real Bitcoiners. Make sure you're taking your internet relationships into Meet Space. This is how we build a stronger, resilient Bitcoin. I don't want to use the word community because Svetski's here, but this is how we build a strong in-person economy, is by meeting and hanging out with real Bitcoiners in real life. All right, let's get to the news.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more.
Let's go, guys. You already know the deal. Don't think about taking your Bitcoin off an exchange. Take your Bitcoin off an exchange. That's probably the most important thing you should be doing. If you're buying on an exchange, make sure you are holding the keys yourself. You're actually taking the Bitcoin into custody, and get yourself a Nokia phone. Shouts out to the boys over at Foundation. Absolutely love it. With the Envoy, I think it might be one of the easiest Bitcoin wallets out there. Okay, guys, before we go on, we already know, how divisive a figure Trump is, but we're going to talk about this because ever since he came out and talked about Bitcoin, it's completely changed the conversation around Bitcoin in general. But before we move on, guys, there's about 1,000 of you guys watching on all of our platforms. Smash the like button for the algos. Make sure more people see the signal. All right, so you see here, and for the audio listeners, I'm on Forbes.com right now, the Forbes digital asset portion of their website. And we have this beautiful headline here. It is Trump sparks talks of Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. So if you want to go read the whole article, go to Forbes and check it out. I'm sure if you are a savage Bitcoiner, you hang out with the Simply Bitcoin, you already know what it's going to say. But I will pick a few key moments out of this conversation or this article so that we can talk about it. Of course, it starts with the infamous Trump tweet, the Trump speech that he just did. We want all the remaining Bitcoin to be made in the US. And ever since Trump has expressed strong support for Bitcoin and saying we don't want China or Russia to be the only ones holding Bitcoin. And if we hamper Bitcoin adoption in the US, then we're basically giving the rest of the world free run to embrace a technology that's going to change the world. The discourse has fundamentally changed. And we've even been covering this on the show. Ever since Trump came out being pro-Bitcoin, the Biden administration tried to, cover their tails a little bit and come out and be pro-Bitcoin as well. Obviously, for everyone that's actually watching and taking notice, it's a little bit too little too late. But these discussions are happening behind the scenes, which I think is the most interesting aspect of this, because it's not just us Bitcoiners that have been talking about this. Bitcoiners have been talking about this for a long, long time, probably over a decade at this point. I remember Pierre Rochard on Nakamoto Institute talking about the speculative attack on the US dollar. Well, it seems like now these conversations are happening, though they're not happening in the sense that us Bitcoiners would be talking about. They're like, maybe we need to add Bitcoin to our balance sheet and it becomes a strategic reserve asset because we're in incredible amounts of debt and we're bankrupt and we're broke. So after these conversations, it's sparked a wildfire. Now everyone has to have a view on Bitcoin. So I got a few quotes here that I want to talk about on today's show. They asked Senator Lummis her perspective on this, and she said, Bitcoin is an incredible store of value, and I certainly see the benefits of our country diversifying its investments. She's, of course, a Bitcoiner. I forget, it's her godson is an adamant Bitcoiner. You guys know him. And, of course, it's not only Trump and Lummis. We have RFK Jr., we have Ramaswamy. There are a whole new tide of politicians out there that understand that embracing Bitcoin is not only good for the individual, but it's good for the country. It's good for the nation state level as well. So going into this, let's see what this article says. So, of course, leveraging Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset is the theme of this article. And they quoted Alex Thorn. You guys should definitely follow Alex Thorn. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, guys, but there's some key points here. Despite the lack of any coherent Bitcoin strategy, the United States currently leads the digital gold rush. It's the largest nation state holder of Bitcoin, having seized the bulk of its Bitcoin stack from a quote-unquote illicit actors over the last decade. The country also boasts the most network nodes, hash rate, and Bitcoin mindshare of any country in the world. And if Trump were to win in November, the nation would have its first pro-Bitcoin president. And these factors place the United States in a strong position to become the micro-strategy of nations, should that be a policy priority for a future administration. And then it goes into, and I really wanted just to highlight this, the fact that they're talking about micro-strategy and El Salvador in positive lights in the corporate press. Of course, shouts out to the Forbes team and all the Bitcoiners that are writing for Forbes. But they go into scaling the MicroStrategy playbook. One way the United States could leverage Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset is by pulling a page from the MicroStrategy and El Salvador playbooks. As the largest nation state holder of Bitcoin, the United States already has a leg up over other countries in accumulating digital gold. But classifying and then treating Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset would kick the nation-state race for Bitcoin into high gear. And this is what we talk about here constantly. The Bitcoin game theory is live. And if you're the last one to adopt Bitcoin, well, hey, you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. So as Alex Thorn explained, simple game theory dictates that adoption by one nation necessitates that other nations consider the same, whether friend or foe. And of course, we already have El Salvador. They're stacking Bitcoin. They have I forget what their DCA strategy is, but they are buying the dip. They're buying Bitcoin constantly, which is what we recommend you guys do every single day. In the last post, before I drop a little more sauce in here and pass it to my guest, the game theory would only accelerate if the United States, the wealthiest nation in the world and the home of global capital, were the first developed country to begin accumulating Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. This decision would fast-track global acceptance of Bitcoin as a long-term savings instrument and a form of digital gold. In this scenario, the United States would enjoy the greatest windfall and profit among OECD countries as a result of holding first-mover advantage. I would kind of argue that El Salvador has the first mover advantage, but the U.S. has all the capital. So that would not only give legitimacy to all of us Bitcoiners holding it, but it would really kick off the game theory. And of course, Max Kaiser never takes a moment to not boast about things he said and predicted in the past. So shouts out to Kaiser. You know how much I love when he gets cosmic. Here's Kaiser's take. He goes, as predicted back in 2019, when I coined the term global hash war to describe nations switching from trying to ban Bitcoin to hoarding Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, I was the lone voice at the time. Now it's common knowledge. No, Jason Lowry plagiarized the idea some years later. Just love to see it. And then, of course, this morning, we saw Bitcoin Magazine post, El Salvador has been buying the dip. You guys remember, we covered this in the past. El Salvador has open sourced, or rather made their holdings transparent. You can see they're stacking the dip. They're constantly buying Bitcoin, which is what we recommend here constantly to you guys, is keep stacking Bitcoin. Now, before I move it on to our guests, I know Trump's very polarizing. I know Bitcoiners always talk about like, why should we vote? Politics is a scam. You know, voting's a scam. There's no need to vote. Well, I do come from that view. I of course, believe Bitcoin is apolitical. It's the most apolitical thing in the world, hence why it is political in the first place. But it is becoming very clear that there is a pro-Bitcoin political group currently right now. And we have an anti-Bitcoin political group right now, which is the Democrats. So you are either pro-Bitcoin, you're either pro-freedom, you're either pro-humanity, or you are pro-CBDC. So I know you guys are saying we shouldn't vote. I know you're like, voting's a scam, but I think it's becoming more and more clear that this, and I'm really glad I have Svetski on the show today, because I'm sure this is going to be a very good conversation. But I think it's becoming very clear that the elections this year in November are becoming a super important election for not only Bitcoiners, but for the US, and I would argue for the world at large. We are seeing that there is one side of the aisle that wants to kick down and stop as much freedom as possible, and the other one that, hey, maybe this is just lip service. Maybe Trump is just saying whatever he has to say to get elected. Of course, he's a politician. But if we get 4 more years of cover for Bitcoin so that Bitcoin could proliferate itself, so that Bitcoin could get completely out of the gate, which I already think it is. But if we get some good rules coming out, we get some more politicians, we get the US government to embrace Bitcoin, hopefully maybe even, take down the taxes on Bitcoin, which would be great. We're going to see that every other country is going to have to follow suit. There is one defining conversation happening right now, and everyone is going to have to make a stance. It's either pro-Bitcoin or anti-Bitcoin. And I know a lot of Bitcoiners were talking about, maybe Bitcoin will be talked about the first debate. It didn't happen. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Is Bitcoin going to become a defining conversation right now? Because I don't know if you've seen the polls, but a lot of the voter population out there is concerned about a few things: inflation and national debt, because people are getting poorer and they're wondering, what's going on out there? Why are we $35 trillion in debt? Why do I have to pay taxes if you can just print money out of thin air? Like, what is going on? So more people are waking up to the problem that Bitcoiners talk about here, not only on Twitter, not only on Simply Bitcoin, but in general. It's the money, stupid. The money is broken, and the politicians are incentivized to continue to print money. So you got to make sure that you embrace the Bitcoin candidates. I know Bitcoiners don't like to embrace politicians in general, but you already know the deal. Hey, we got a pro-Bitcoin stance, an anti-Bitcoin stance. So it's a pretty easy choice for me right here. But before I pass it on, guys, like this video. You not like this content? Smash the like button and push the algos. But before I go to Chris, because Chris is going to get the little more tamed down view, I want to go to Svetski. Svetski, we did kind of talk about this before the show, not necessarily about Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset, but the idea of maybe the libertarians were wrong a little bit in this whole political debate, and maybe as Bitcoiners, we should be vying for power. So what's your thoughts on this whole thing, Aleks?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a libertarian for a number of years. I literally wrote the Uncommunist Manifesto. But libertarians, it's a losing position. You can't. So there's a couple things, and Chris said this before on the when we were backstage. To have a libertarian society, you have to have everybody basically be 160 IQ. Everybody needs to respect property rights. Everybody needs to think the same, agree on non-aggression principles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sorry, but it's just not the fucking case. And if you get people who are otherwise smart, who convince everybody else who's smart that, hey, we need to be libertarian, we need to not have power. Power is bad. Power is evil. Blah blah, and kind of retreat. Like libertarianism is almost like a philosophy of retreat. What you do is you create a vacuum for the parasites to take hold, and that's essentially what's happened in the West, whether it's America, Europe, whatever. Right? Is good people, otherwise fucking people that could lead or inspire people, have left a vacuum for the morons to come in and for the fucking monkeys to run the show. And the conservatives have been guilty of this as well, because they actually pushed good people further away from it as well. Now, we've had this resurgence of, call it the dissident right or whatever, which I'm really intrigued by. And in there, I would say people like Milei. Milei might brand himself as a libertarian, but he actually acts far more conservative. You've got Bukele as a fantastic example of somebody who acts like this. You got these people actually going and claiming power back. And I think that is the right move, because power will always exist. If you leave a vacuum for it, the parasites will fill it. And the parasites, their ultimate priority is to bring everybody down to their level. That's the whole fucking point. So my opinion on Trump, I think he's a fucking legend. Trump, people quickly forget, it's really strange. Trump was a business owner first, politician second, right? He's not in the same fucking league as Biden and fucking RFK and all these other people. He is a business owner first. He's charismatic. He's got the right fucking energy. Even though the cunt's like 75, 80 years old, it doesn't matter. He's got more energy than the average 40-year-old. So that to me is very interesting. And he's got a good sense for, directionally where to be. This is why he partnered up with Vivek. This is why he's, his son is going and meeting up with Bitcoiners, meeting up with Bukele, etc. Like when he saw Milei won, he gave the right words. He knows how to fucking like point and prod and like trigger the leftists who are, the biggest disease we have on the planet now is the fucking leftoids. So, I care less about the Bitcoin element. Bitcoin's going to do its thing. He is particularly spot on because he senses that there is a big cohort of people who have an aligned energy with Trump, with everything that he represents, that are pro-Bitcoin. So he's intelligent. He's tapping on that and he's aligning himself with that cohort of people. So that's good for us as Bitcoiners who want to see that win. And, ultimately anything to see the fucking leftoids lose, the better. Fuck those cunts.
Wow. I know Nico was trolling when he said Aleks is our favorite status on Simply Bitcoin, but wow, really a status today, Aleks. No, I'm just trolling. I'm just trolling.
Totally. Dude, I've become a statist again. I don't give a fuck. I'm totally for a state. You need a state. You can't have a stateless society. It's fucking bullshit. It's a literal fantasy. It doesn't matter what anybody says. There will always be some sort of organization for governance. And that is going to be a fucking state. That doesn't matter if it's like a city state or this or that. Doesn't matter what you call it. It will fucking exist. The question is, who is in the position of power?
Love it. Couldn't agree more. All right, guys. I did drop a poll. Someone was asking, forgive me, I'm blanking, but if you want to respond, we'll talk about this in the poll. So I did a poll on the YouTube chat. Trump says he's pro-Bitcoin. Do you think he's telling the truth? Give us your vote right now as I pass it over to Chris. Chris, what's your thoughts on all this? I'm sure you're not going to go full left side of the bell curve on us, but I'm sure it's going to be some high level stuff here. So Chris, what's your thoughts on, maybe you can talk about Trump in general or the idea of Bitcoin being added to the U.S. balance sheet and being a strategic reserve asset, wherever you want to take it.
Yeah. So, I kind of back what Svetski's saying and kind of what Opti said earlier, that like if you vote for Trump, or, first thing I'll say is I vote every day, buy Bitcoin, put it in self-storage. That's the first thing. That's probably your best bet. Voting, we don't have to go down that whole rabbit hole, but if you want to vote in the elections, that is your right. Voting for Trump, obviously, like Opti said, I think it kind of gives you more cover. Hopefully it can give more protection for the Bitcoin network for the next 4 years. And if you want to vote for the left or someone else, I know I'm kind of in the Nolan camp. Nolan was saying like he wanted John Fetterman as president with Hunter Biden as VP. Like he's more for the accelerationist camp of like, let's bring out all the crazy idiots and make them president. Let's make this more like idiocracy. And, Bitcoin standard hyper Bitcoinizes even faster. So I think either way, Bitcoin wins. I think obviously the best thing to do is obviously buy Bitcoin, put it in self-storage. And then kind of what Svetski said countless times, like get a wife, get a girlfriend, build your community, build where you live, improve. Like localism is the best way to fight against this like federalism or, like this federal government. Like if you have a strong community with strong neighbors that have your back with hell or high water, that's the way you beat the globalists. Like they want this whole technocratic top down theory with AI controlling the world. I don't live for that world. I live for strong neighbors. They need help. I help them out. I hope they help me back out in return. Picking up your fellow man, building a strong foundation and community is a way to fight back against these people. They hate that. They would hate for us to be arm in arms and for the government to be like, hey, you have to do this. And then everyone in this community says, go fuck off, pound sand. So yeah, I know that's a long-winded rant, but Opti, if you want to take it back.
No, I mean, great rant. This is
the only thing, if I can say
go,
something,
Alex. Yeah, jump in.
I think that's 100% true. Like the local component is more important. What these idiots are most afraid of is you being individually strong, you having a family, you having money, you having, being beautiful, being strong, being healthy, and being wealthy. Like that's exactly what they don't want. So you should just do what the fuck they don't want. The one thing I used to somewhat agree with the accelerationist idea, but I no longer agree with that, because the problem we have with the accelerationist theory is that if we just burn everything to the ground, Bitcoin's going to be worth nothing as well. I don't think people actually get this. Bitcoin is a proxy to the amount of wealth around you. If we are living in the fucking Stone Age, the total amount of wealth that Bitcoin is going to measure is zero or minimal. So you actually don't want the accelerationists. You don't want everything fucking tearing down. I guess the accelerationists bank on the fact that, hey, if it's like complete mindless stupidity out there and everything falls apart, there might be like the opposite reaction. But I'm not so sure. You look at what's happening with this accelerationism is that immigrants are coming in, fucking the social structure's falling apart, they're arresting fucking good people, censoring, like all of the bad shit is happening, and it's actually making things worse. And I mean, we saw with 2020 the amount of fucking lemmings that are out there that wore like masks and stood 6 feet apart and all this sort of stuff. Like I posted a video the other day on Twitter. I was scrolling through my phone and I found an old video that I made it in 2020 before I got banned on Twitter for the first time. Is like, it just showed the gaslighting that we experienced in 2020, and it hasn't gotten any better. And people still believe it. Like that poll I saw is like 33% of people are still voting for Biden. It's like, what the fuck, and how dumb do you have to be? Like how out of touch from humanity, from sanity, from anything do you have to be to still think that that's a good leader for the most powerful nation of the world? Like people are fucking out of their minds. So the more we accelerate, there is a big chance that more and more people go that way. More and more people get desperate. More and more people get violent. More like we basically turn the world into San Francisco. Like, and I don't think that's fucking good for Bitcoin, for me, for you, for anyone. So I no longer agree with accelerationism. I think it's fucking dumb.
Yeah, and I was kind of saying kind of what Nolan said. I kind of agree, but I know some people are like fed up with it. But I completely agree. Like the whole the stupidity of it all, like things are going to get worse before they get better. Well, I do think that things can get better and they don't have to get worse. Like it, kind of what you were saying, Svetski, like if we tear things down and make it so bad, it's like rebuilding the rubble is way harder than like fixing the things that the way they are or maintaining the things and improving the things that they are.
There's still some good foundations. Like we can't forget that. Like there is still good foundations out there, and we don't have to blow fucking everything up in order to say, see, we were right. We shouldn't have done this. It's like, okay, fucking congratulations. You're standing in a pile of rubble and now you got to build everything again. No, like, get the fucking shitheads out, salvage whatever is good from the foundations, eliminate the shitty foundations, rebuild where it's needed. And that's it. Like, why do we have to go backwards all the way to start again? It's really fucking dumb.
Yeah, man. Totally agree. Totally agree. Well, great conversation, but we're going to go even harder on this topic in the culture when we cover the Bushido of Bitcoin. And I think this will all wrap it up very nicely today. But before we do that, of course, we got to pay the bills here on Simply Bitcoin. Go to orangepillapp.com, stack friends who stack sats. As I constantly tell you guys, probably every single day, you need to ensure that you are building these relationships off the internet and in real life. So, as we constantly talk about on the show, Bitcoiners will have all the capital. Bitcoiners will, as we'll talk about with Svetski right now, I think hypothetically, maybe allegedly, we all believe that Bitcoiners will be the new elite. And are you going to usher in these stats correctly if you're the lone Bitcoiner in your community? If you're the lone wolf out there, which don't actually exist, you don't have much power by yourself, but you have power in numbers. So get on orangepillapp.com, stack friends who stack sats. This is the way, this is how we build the culture from the ground up, from the bottom up, is by interacting and building with Bitcoiners in real life.
The Daily Culture.
One last plug. Make sure you go to KABOOMRACKS.com. KABOOMRACKS, the best place to buy, sell, and host your mining equipment. If you are on the fence about mining, get in touch with the KABOOMRACKS team. I know my boy at KABOOMRACKS, Aleks on Twitter. He will answer all your DMs. So if you have questions, make sure you go hit them up. And of course, right now, they have a hosting deal on their S19K. Oops, wrong one. S19K Pro 120 terahash instant hosting. Once your payment goes through, you're hashing no KYC sats instantly. All right, let's get into this conversation. So, Svetski, before we go on, I just want to play the trailer. It's going to set the scene really good for everyone in the audience that's not familiar with this. So, guys, tune in. We got an epic trailer for you guys on what the Bushido of Bitcoin is. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, guys, it might have lagged a little bit. I'm not sure, so let me know if it did, but I dropped the link in the YouTube chat. Go check out BushidoBitcoin.com. Anyways, Aleks, I think that was a great tee up. So, I don't know. Do we want to rehash what the Bushido of Bitcoin is? Where do you want to take this? So like, what's top of mind for you right now after watching the trailer?
Look, I mean, one thing I'll say is people should go check out Helian's work. I think his Twitter handle is Heliand, HELIAND_22, if I remember correctly. He's a fucking magician when it comes to videos. Like, we spent about 2 months on that trailer, and we wanted to make people feel what the book might be about. But I guess top of mind, I mean, we hashed out earlier, like, what the book is, what it's about. And it's, as I mentioned, it's not a book on economics or finance or Bitcoin technicals or any of that. It's a book on culture, virtue, civilization, and, as I mentioned, the people that I use to inspire the book were the Alexander the Greats and the Julius Caesars and philosopher thinkers who are different to what we are used to in the Bitcoin space. So less Mises, more Spengler, and there's like, I'm not sure anywhere specific to take it. Like, I could read out a couple excerpts and we could just riff off that if you like.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Okay, all right. So there's there's a section in there called, let's do this, physiopsychology, and it opens up with a quote that says, "There is more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophy," and that's a quote by Nietzsche. So then I open it up by saying, "Mind over matter is bullshit. I don't care how much you think you can lift. It's only when you get under the barbell that you discover the truth." That's not to say that the mind doesn't count. It will help you get there and might help push you that final couple percent, but it's the body that does the work. The truth is, you cannot even separate mind from body, and true intelligence is both mental and physical. They reinforce each other. It's more like body and mind over space and stuff. Nietzsche uses the term physiopsychology to describe this body intelligence and builds a large part of his philosophy on the basis of the following foundations. The mind and the body evolve together. There is no separation between them, and one cannot live without the other. The key takeaway is that you're an embodied being consisting of more than just eyeballs, fingertips, some genitals, and some gray matter trapped inside of a skull. While a disembodied brain in a vat might be Yuval Harari's erotic fantasy, it is thankfully not yet a description of reality, nor is it either viable or desirable. So, like, this is an example of the kind of topics I decided to cover in the thing. Is basically topics around vitality, around excellence, around ascendance, around strength and power. So I think I should hit on this as an idea, is most Bitcoiners, and this will be an unpopular opinion and something I dig into in the book, is that we've been taught that power is evil, that power corrupts, that, you know, power is like something you shouldn't touch. Like, and it's become so pervasive, and this is, you know, where the libertarians really go wrong, is that by abdicating the responsibility to channel power, you leave a vacuum for people who covet power for power's sake to come and take it and use it in ways that are not great. So power is like technology. It's agnostic, right? And it's something that requires strength, and it requires, like responsibility, I think, more than anything else, to channel, right? And one thing I find funny, like I did a talk in BTC Prague last week or the week before, which was called "Beauty Will Save the World." And in there, I talk a little bit about power. I say nature is beautiful because it is ultimately powerful. And I showed examples of like a hurricane, of a fucking volcano, of a lightning storm, of a lion running at you. Like, these things are extraordinarily powerful and they're extraordinarily beautiful. So they point to something truer, deeper, more fundamental to existence. Now, one of the things I mentioned in there, I said, Bitcoiners will literally say in the same sentence, they'll say proof of work is good, power is bad. And you look at the equations, like proof of work is literally work, which is energy over time, and power is, sorry, no. So proof of work is literally work is energy. That's the physical definition of work is energy. It's joules. Power is energy over time. It is literally like the definition of power is the channeling of energy. And people will sit there and say that is evil, that is bad, that is wrong. And they won't think a little bit deeper that a living being, its duty, its purpose in life is to channel energy, to be powerful, to reach, to create, to produce, to ascend, right? And this ties into one of the deep topics of the book, essentially, which is how do we build an ascendant or a vital culture, or an ascendant or a vital civilization? And to me, that is completely opposite to a descendant civilization, or something that is decaying, right? And one of the axes there that really matter, or the axes, I don't know if that, how the fuck you say the plural for axis, but it's you've got excellence on one side and you've got equality on the other. Equality is descendant, because the only way you can create equality, honestly, the only way you can equalize anything is by chopping everything down. Like, if you want to get the grass out in the lawn all equal, you need to get a lawnmower and you need to go chop everything down, right? If you want excellence, you're going to inevitably get hierarchy. You're going to get superiority, you're going to get inferiority, you're going to get jagged edges. Like, literally in the book, the spine, or the core of the book, is the etymological exploration and historical examples of the 10 virtues of Bushido, which are justice, courage, compassion, honor, integrity, responsibility, excellence, loyalty, respect, and self-control. I believe that's the 10 off the top of my head. At the beginning of each chapter, I go into the etymological roots, and not only the English etymology, but the English, the Latin, the Proto-Indo-European, the Japanese, and the Chinese. And it's fucking fascinating how the very basis of these words, even like Japanese and English, are two completely unrelated languages, but the kanjis, the literal radicals in the pictograms in Japan for the word excellence, mean the same thing, or derive the same meaning as English and Latin roots that happened on the other side of the world. And what they both mean is, excellence, for example, is the mountain separating itself from the flatland, which is what the definition of excellence, like the visceral, organic, natural definition of excellence actually means. And coming to tie that back, like before I finish this rant, is that we need to choose a civilization that is either ascendant and excellent, or comfortable and equal. And each one has trade-offs. This is something people need to realize, is that something that is excellent is going to come with winners and losers. It's going to come with jagged edges. It's not going to be very comfortable, like climbing, building a mountain, go for a fucking hike up Kilimanjaro, or go climb Mount Everest. It ain't comfortable. It's not for fucking everybody. There's no room at the top for everybody. But when you do that, civilization and life reaches, because what life wants to do, it wants to ascend, it wants to reach, it wants to grow, it wants to stretch. The alternative is you can build a nice, safe, cushioned, egalitarian, equal culture. But the problem with that is it is descendant in nature. It gets comfortable. People get weaker. People get softer. People get dumber. You create this, like, WALL-E is the greatest movie that represents that. People just become these fucking fat blobs that can't do anything else. And that's the direction you go. Like, average is the first step to death, right? Like, everything starts to descend. It's the opposite of excellence. So while you might feel a little bit warm and fuzzy, you end up decaying everything around you. And we as individuals, and then as an extension to that, as a culture and a civilization, need to consciously choose which way we want to go. And the whole argument of the book is that if we want to build a culture and a civilization of ascendance, or of excellence, or of greatness, or of glory, of something beautiful, we need to consciously choose that direction and not the other, not the shit that we've been choosing for the last century. So I'll pause there if you want to dig into anything.
Yeah, I love it. First and foremost, I also kind of want to touch on, like, I don't know where along in the modern world it became a bad thing to seek individual excellence and, trying to be better. Like, where I grew up and what I grew up, the way my mother raised me and my family raised me, it's like, you want to be the best person you can be. I remember that was like a common trope as a kid, like be better than you are, leave a better world and all that. But of course, I'm also a millennial, and I'm like, I think the first generation to grow up with participation trophies, and it just always rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, I don't want that. Like, I lost. I don't want that trash. I did not win. Anyways, Chris did want to chime in here, and then I'll tee you up with one more question, because I do have a question for you, Alex, because I get this question all the time. But Chris, jump in.
Yeah, Svetski, I want to kind of highlight the one thing that you were saying, like parasites love the power quote. Like they must have invented that. Like power is evil and absolute power corrupts, and you get the quote. They must have created that because it's like they want to make people that are virtuous or people that are good be like, oh, I don't want to be corrupted. Like you're definitely like tricking the mind of being like, oh, I'm good. I would do good for my people or my family or my community, but I don't want to be corrupted, so I'm not going to seek power. So a parasite could sit in that position and like they don't give a fuck. They want power. They seek power. They don't care that it corrupts or that they're corrupted. But that's definitely something they created. But I guess
the greatest psyop of the 20th century. People don't fucking realize it. This is the psyop.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, and that I hope that hammers home in your book. I'm sure it does. But the one thing I wanted to ask is, so obviously you've looked at society. You were saying you looked at the warriors. You looked at the Japanese soldiers. I'm sure you looked at medieval times of the knights. Them being virtuous. But obviously all of these societies collapsed. I guess in your purview, was that because of money collapsing? Was that because of revolution? Was that because of parasites taking over and causing revolts? So what has been your, obviously we're in the Western world now, or the developed world now. What has led to the collapse of all of these great societies or great people? Like obviously the samurai are not as big. The knights are no longer around. Like what in your opinion, what has led to this collapse?
Was it virtue collapsing?
It's a really tough question, man. There's a section in the book where I just grapple with this shit for about fucking 50 pages and like ask the question, like, is it material wealth? Like when we get rich, do we corrupt? Like what happens generationally speaking when you have a couple generations removed from that? Is it when we remove the warrior class? Because that's essentially what happened with the fall of feudalism. Like Japan, as they removed the warrior class and dismantled feudalism, like Japan's a really unique case because it was the last major cultural, civilization that removed feudalism, and it still seems to operate, even though it was like infected by fiat and infected by democracy and infected by all this other stuff. Japan still has this incredible structural stability, which is an echo of feudalism, in my opinion. But there's many things. Like I was with Bitcoiners, and I believe for a long time that you start printing money, and that's when the decay starts. But I realized that that's not actually true. That's when it accelerates. So you can almost imagine the money printer is when the cancer kicks off. But there's something that has to happen beforehand. Like a civilization just doesn't go from being vital, ascendant, strong on a gold standard and wake up one morning and be like, you know what, fuck it, let's just print some money. That doesn't happen like that. So the decay sets in earlier. And in my opinion, in the West, the decay set in with the French Revolution, late 1800s. You had the inversion. You had the inversion of the hierarchy. You had the dismantling of feudalism. You had proto-communism with the Jacobins. You had the literal and figurative chopping off of the father's head, the patriarchy that existed at the time, which had existed for fucking 2,000 years beforehand in European civilization while it was ascendant. And with chopping off the king's head, with doing that symbolically, ritually, it left this vacuum for who to take hold? The fucking leftists, the original leftists, the Jacobins, the guys who literally invented dobbing on your neighbors. Like long before we dobbed on neighbors in World War I, World War II, and all this sort of shit, it was the fucking French who figured that out and thought it was a good idea for everyone to dob on their neighbors. And that's when you had the French Terror, or the Reign of Terror, I can't remember what it was called, where everybody basically killed everybody else, and the leftist government collapsed, imploded on itself, etc. Like Marx got his ideas from the French left. But to kind of try and tie this all together, it's like the decay starts upstream, just like a cancer in a human being. When you figured out the cancer, when you've realized that you've got cancer, that's when things really accelerate, and that's the point of money printing. But the problem started a little further back when you started eating seed oils, when you stopped moving, when you started fucking using sunscreen and whatever other stupidity that ends up causing cancer. So in my opinion, I've come to realize that there's something cultural about it. It's to do, honestly, with material affluence and the number of generations that come into a level of material affluence. So it's almost like you have this seasonality with culture. You've got, your summer, your winter, your fall, your spring, and all that sort of stuff. When that aligns, and I guess, fucking fourth turning here, but they did have a point with respect to generational seasons and everything. When you get this sort of confluence of a weak generation coming up because they were entitled, because they're materially affluent and they haven't had to work for anything, with a period of time when the psychology of the world is in a place where it's, oh yeah, everything is okay, whatever, you start to create more egalitarianism, more acceptance. And this is exactly like, you look at Rome. Rome started opening its borders. They started becoming more egalitarian. They started moving away from their warrior roots, more towards being merchant and measured by money. So there's this like great saying, it's a quote in the book, and I can't remember who said this. It's, Rome used to fight with iron, and then they came to fight with gold. And it was when they fought with gold that they lost. Same thing with America. Like, America started off as this nation that was producing. It was strong. It was vital. It was like the frontiersman civilization. And then slowly by slowly, it became financialized. It became run by bankers. The whole West became run by bankers, and slowly by slowly it decayed, and it lost virtue. And that's when the money printing accelerates. That's when everything accelerates. So it's a really multifaceted answer. Like, I don't even know if I've got anything conclusive in the book about it, because I don't think anybody will have a conclusive opinion on this. But it's not purely economic. The problem starts upstream, and then it accelerates with broken money.
Yeah, I guess I had a follow-up comment, Svetski, and then I'll let Opti go. So I guess my thing is, do you see it more as good times creating weak men of like generationally, or just good times and they had it too good and they get lazy? Or do you see it more as almost like, I hate to say this comparison, but it's a great story, like the Lion King. Like, it's almost like the jealous neighbor, the jealous brother or cousin. Like, there's the ruler, there's Mufasa is the great king, and then Scar is jealous and like basically usurps or tricks him or like that. So do you see it more like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, more, do you see it as a collapse of like generations like getting weaker, or do you see it more as almost like the jealous brother, king, neighbor, whatever, to trick them and then take over, or power vacuum, as you're saying?
Both happen. So I'll give a little anecdote, which is right at the end of Rome. So there's a guy called Flavius Aetius. He's considered the last true Roman, and around, I believe it's like around 450 AD, 500 AD, which is basically the collapse of Rome. And it's the period of Attila the Hun, who was a Scythian king, who comes in and basically fucking annihilates all of Rome. Like, he beats the Gauls, he beats fucking everybody, and he comes in and he like literally lays waste to Rome. And there's one general who's still got, like, you could almost think of him as like the guy was like a Julius Caesar, but he was born 500 years too late, like outside of the great glory of Rome. And Rome was already decaying. This was where the quote of the Rome was fighting with iron first, and then they went to fight with gold. He stands up to Attila, and after some like incredible battles and all this sort of stuff, he finds a way to politically align the Visigoths with him, I believe part of the Gauls and all this sort of stuff. And they end up stemming the defeat of Rome. So they literally save Rome by a fucking hair's breadth from the Huns, from like literally Western civilization being completely overrun. And what ends up happening is, like, the people, the Senate and everything wanted, or part of the Senate, I should say, wanted Flavius Aetius to take over to be the new emperor, because the emperor at the time was this fucking weakling, this pathetic, entitled little turd, to put it not kindly. And for all the work Flavius did for saving Rome, the emperor has him assassinated because he thinks that Flavius is going to take the power and all this sort of stuff. So you end up getting this situation where the virtuous man, the one who gives his life, gives everything to save the civilization, gets killed by this pathetic parasite who's in power. Now, so that's not exactly like the Scar and Mufasa example, but it's an example where you kind of have this situation where, obviously the emperor didn't kill him of his own accord. It would have been the Senate. It would have been this bunch of parasites there that, like, literally their lives were saved by this guy. And because he amassed political power through the people, through the fact that he saved Rome and everyone was behind him, they got rid of him. And his name was almost forgotten his name was actually only remembered via the fact that a lot of history was recorded about Attila. So I think it's a mixture of these two things, like these pathetic losers that end up like being entitled, coupled with jealousy, coupled with like the evil cousin and all that sort of stuff. And life is complex, as we know. Civilization, all this sort of stuff is complex. You can never really like pinpoint one thing. And the older I get, the more I realize that all of these things are quite multifaceted. But there's bright spots in each of these where you can point to, okay, that's a primary factor, that's a primary factor, that's a primary factor. And I think you're pointing to two major primary factors.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, I can't wait to read this book. But Aleks, last two sats, what's the final message you want to leave with the audience? It could be about the book. It could be, it could be a shill. It could be about life in general. What's the final message you want to leave with the audience?
I think the final message, honestly, is that there was a time when we were complaining about how bad the world is, and that was 2020 to 2022, and that's when we all got radicalized, and we're all like yelling, screeching, screaming about look how fucked up the world is and everything. And then we kind of like moved into just ridiculing, because everything is just so fucking retarded. The US, literally the greatest power in the history of humanity, has a guy that can't fucking put a sentence together as its leadership, right? So it's like we've been in ridicule stage, but I think we need to move to the next stage now, which is claiming territory, claiming power, claiming space, claiming, whether it's political power, economic power, social power, local power, like all of it. We are the fucking ones that need to go out and claim this shit. And this is a message of energy and a message of conquest and a message of moving forward and getting on attack. Like attack is the best defense. Offense is the best defense for a fucking reason. We've been playing defensive long enough. We've been playing, take a back seat. I'm not political. I'm not this, I'm not that. No, fuck that. It's time that we move forward and actually claim space and claim territory again, like our ancestors did. Like, the West conquered the earth for a reason, because we had that vital energy. We were able to go out there and conquer and create and produce. And I think we need that again. And the age of conquest is going to come again. Like the world is fucked up, and it's not going to get better by sitting, and just buying some fucking Bitcoin. Like it's going to get better if, sure, we buy some Bitcoin, we secure ourselves economically, but then we do something with that capital. So if people are interested in that kind of message, the link's there, bushidoofbitcoin.com. You can pre-order it for some sats on Geyser. It's like half the price before it goes live on Amazon, and fuck Amazon, we don't want to give them money. So you can send it straight to me. You can get it on Kickstarter, like all that sort of stuff. And if you want to support that work, by all means. If not, all good. You can get a free bunch of chapters at bushidoofbitcoin.com as well. Just chuck your email in there. You get a free bunch of, and it's not like I haven't been a tight ass, like, oh, here's a little free chapter. It's like a big chunk of the book. So you can get that for free.
Love it. Love it. Hold on. We got to give Aleks some horns, because I couldn't agree more. I've also noticed the very similar trend that you were just talking about of Bitcoiners just being on the defense. And I think it's time that all of us Bitcoiners, in whatever capacity we can, is that we go on the offense, and we're not just battling the narratives. It's like like you said, we're claiming territory. We're showing that living on Bitcoin is the better, superior way of life, and out there creating the businesses and the communities and the opportunities so that other people see that living on Bitcoin not only makes you successful, but it makes you healthy and a good person. And I couldn't agree more. I'm super excited to get this book myself. So guys, go to bushidoofbitcoin.com, pre-order yourself a copy, and I can't wait to read this. Actually, before we go, when is it going to be officially launched? What's the launch date so the people can expect when to get a book?
There's no launch date at the moment, but I expect it's with the editors now. I expect to have that ready, and then get all the typesetting and everything done in August. And yeah, I think it'll start shipping end of August. So the people who have ordered it, pre-order via Geyser or via Kickstarter, they're going to get it first, and then it'll go on Amazon probably in September.
Love it. Love it. Well, there you go, guys. Make sure you get it on Kickstarter or on Geyser, and you can get your hands on it first. All right, Aleks. Well, man, really appreciate you coming on. I absolutely love every time you come on. As Nico would have said here, Aleks Svetski every time comes on Simply Bitcoin, literally exploding the Overton window, breaking the echo chamber, and not saying everything that Bitcoiners want to hear, but they need to hear. And this is why we love bringing you on, bro. So really appreciate it. I know you're not in the
Love you
US,
guys.
but happy 4th, happy Freedom Day. As you can tell, today's was a show that might be a little heavy for some people, but it's all about independence, about freedom, about taking back your own personal sovereignty. So Alex, really appreciate it, bro. Hang out behind the scenes while I wrap today's show up.
Thank you, boys. Thank you.
Peace
Happy
out.
4th.
You as well, man. All right, Chris. Well, your duties are off. Go have fun. Go enjoy your 4th of July. Appreciate you coming on, bro. You always make me look good, so I love it when you come on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Happy 4th of July, everyone. Have a happy and safe time. Have some beers. Enjoy some freedom. Expand your family. Grow your communities. Strengthen your body and your mind. And have a good one, everyone.
Let's go. All right. Appreciate it, Chris. All right, guys. Well, today was episode 1024 on 4th of July 2024. So you already know the deal. Like, subscribe, share this content. Make sure people wake up to what is actually going on in the world. It's not just about sharing Simply Bitcoin content. It's about spreading the Bitcoin message to as far and wide as possible. Make sure your friends and family understand why you Bitcoin, the importance of Bitcoin. And this is why we make the content. On that note, guys, get outside, touch some grass, go hang out with your friends and family, go eat some meats at the barbecue. If you're not in the US and you're not celebrating 4th of July, stack some sats and embrace your own financial freedom. This is the way, guys. We will be back tomorrow for the last show of the week. It's your boy Opti. Peace out.
It was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, on a mission to enable independence.